Two Ronnies, Leslie Ash went on to play it straight as computer whiz Fred Smith in the all-girl, all-action series Cat's Eyes. Her return to intentional comedy came in 1992 as Deborah, the sexy new neighbour to the boys, who were suddenly behaving better.
Hi, I'm Deborah. I bought the flat upstairs.
Oh, hello, Gary. Flat downstairs.
Look.
Oh, this is Dorothy. She's a nurse.
Yeah, have some wine. Cheers.
So, will you be living in a sharing situation?
No.
Oh.
Do you all live in this flat?
No. She lives with her mother miles away.
Have you got anyone helping you move in?
Yeah, a friend of mine's got a van. He's going to give me a hand. I'm afraid there'll be a bit of humping upstairs.
Leslie, of course, was Simon's fantasy casting for the gorgeous girl upstairs. She would be every guy's fantasy, like, oh my God, have you seen us move to upstairs? Right, let's go and meet her. Let's get her down here under any pretext. Let's hope we can get into her knickers.
Let's get together sometime.
For a meal or just for me?
She fancies me.
She fancies me.
Men Behaving Badly got off to a flying start. Harry Enfield and the team attracted big audiences. Beryl Virtue's instincts were proved right, and ITV uncrossed its collective fingers. But behind the scenes, something had started to smell a bit off, and it wasn't coming from the fridge.
I knew Harry wasn't very happy, and he had a lot of headaches during the first series, and I thought, I can't stand working with somebody who's really not very happy.
I never did tell anybody that he'd said he'd only do one series. So when it got picked up for a second series, he said he wouldn't do it, and there was shock horror everywhere and surprise, but not from me, because I knew that.
With Harry Enfield wanting to hand in his notice, the show's future was plunged into doubt. Beryl Virtue had to find someone new to pay the rent and keep the show on the screens. But as ever, she had a plan.
You had to sort of stop them all panicking, saying, well, we can't do it then. And I said, well, we could, because Harry Enfield played the lodger, and the lodger could leave, and a new lodger could arrive.
With Enfield packed up and gone, the team found a new lodger who could keep them on the road.
Hi.
Afternoon.
I was doing Boone at the time, and I was an old drinking pal of Martin Clune's. He used to live in Tufnell Park, and I was a Crouch Ender. And we had mutual friends, and we became friends. And a couple of years later, he recommended me, because Harry didn't want to do it anymore. And Martin recommended me for it. So I went down and met Beryl, had a bit of lunch, and got it.
Is this the flat with the room to let?
Yes, who are you?
Tony.
Tony? You should have come last week.
Yeah, I lost a bit of paper with the address on it.
Oh, well, come on.
I don't know what happened, you know.
So it was pretty straightforward. He walked in, he had his long hair.
Hi.
All the girls thought he was gorgeous. And immediately you had an extra element in the show, in that he was quite fanciable. And we were able to make him successful with women, in contrast to Martin's character, who was not very successful with women.
You missed your last bus home.
I think I have, actually.
Is the door locked?
Yes.
It was very funny when Neil started, because I'd known Neil from before and I knew Caroline before, but Neil and Caroline hadn't met before. And when Neil first started, Caroline was giving her usual sort of jip, and in Neil she found someone who wasn't afraid to bark back, and it was actually quite. There was no bad air, but you could see her go, "Whoa!" It's because usually you just sort of, "Oh yeah, okay," but not with Neil, because it's mixed with a kind of flirtation as well, which is a curious mixture, but it gives her a license to print money. And so off she was going, and Neil, you'll have to bleep this, but Neil just went, "You're asking for a and she was like, "Oh God, so I am."
With a new cast and a new start, the team were ready to let rip. And it seemed nothing would stop Men Behaving Badly becoming a huge hit.
We all felt really confident that we would be recommissioned. And I took a very long holiday. I'd never had such a long holiday before or since, and I went off to New Zealand thinking, I can afford this. All will be well and I'll do a new series when I get back.
But when she got back, Beryl found that things had changed. Thames Television had lost their ITV franchise, so Men Behaving Badly was about to become homeless.
It was a horrible time when ITV said that they wouldn't recommission it. And we just went, why? We just couldn't understand it.
I think the thinking was that they didn't view it. They saw the drop in figures from the one with Harry Enfield in, who has a huge and faithful audience, to looking at the second series without Harry, the figures dropped, but they should have looked at it as a first series, if you know what I mean, without Harry.
For the second time, Men Behaving Badly faced extinction. But having saved the show once already, Beryl Virtue wasn't about to let it die.
I decided that the only place I could try and sell it was the BBC. I just thought that's where I'll go. Because it was actually very unusual to do that. In fact, I don't think anybody had ever done it, so I was told, to move a series from one place to another.
Beryl Virtue came to see me and said to me, I'm not sure what ITV feel about Men Behaving Badly. They're not very keen on it. What would you feel about taking it? Now, it's interesting. I have to admit, I really didn't have any hesitation about taking it, which was, let's be clear, taking a show from ITV is one thing. Not just taking a show, which is what we eventually did, but take the show and repeat it on BBC One. That's weird. No one had ever done that before. So why did I do it? I did it for a very simple reason. I loved the show. I thought it was great.
Do you want another oyster?
Oh, thanks, mate. I disagree with me.
No, we don't.
Getting a good sitcom is tough, I can tell you. So ITV having something good but not having realised its potential was already sort of appealing.
The switch to the BBC gave the show new life and a new audience, and being broadcast later in the evening opened up a whole new set of possibilities.
It was absolutely brilliant because we could go post-Watershed, because we'd kind of, quite quickly, within 2 series, exhausted the possibilities where you could say golly in a programme called Men Behaving Badly. We needed to cover the territory that the title suggested a bit more.
I'm a wanker, I'm a wanker, and I just need good luck and bloody well should. I'm a wanker, I'm a wanker, wank, 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 wank.
It's odd actually because I don't want to shock. I'm really quite sort of conservative with a small c, and I do. But it just, if you're writing a show about young men, especially living on their own, you just got to tackle things like masturbation, you know. I think it was a mistake probably to put it out on Christmas Day.
Really get to know your partner's private parts.
Okay.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Now, that's a classic example of Caroline's hunger for humour, in that we would, you know, there was very little written about what happened to the sticky tissues. It wouldn't have been allowed if Neil or I had done it, but because it was lovely Caroline doing it, and she's and all that, and also it was the only way to sort of get out of a sticky tissue situation.
I'm sure a huge proportion of the audience were tuning in to see something more smutty than they'd ever seen on telly before. I mean, you can't get away from it. I mean, people like a bit of smut.
Plastic surgeons in Brazil are developing implants that allow breast